Trey, the other thing that we wanted to talk about was a UC preview and break down what we're going to see a little bit in Saturday's Crosstown Shootout. Are you ready to dive into that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing I'm going to be really looking at is UC's defense, and they are very unique again. Complete opposite from Houston in a lot of respects. One thing is they do play hard. They do get out in pressure. They do try to get in some passing lanes, and they do deny. But the way they put on their pressure is completely different. And I think the stats. That's the first thing I think a lot of coaches do when you go into a matchup, right? Is you're going to pull up your KenPom, you're going to pull up the season box scores. There's synergy, there's shot quality. Even in the last couple of years, there's HDI. There's a ton of analytic companies that have come out, and so I think a lot of times coaches will look at those analytics to get an idea of what to look for going in. So it's like, even before I looked at these UC clips, that's the first thing I did. And there's a couple things that stand out, what they're doing really well defensively. Number one is they are defending the 3-point line extremely well. Teams are only shooting 30. They're 37th in 3-point field goal percentage defense. So they're 37th, and they have a low percentage of threes going in against them. So they're contesting threes a lot. They're staying home on it. But not only that, they're not allowing a ton of 3-point field goal attempts. So if you look at point distribution on KenPom, so they only get 25%. They only give up 25% of their points defensively from three. So UC score, they give up defensively 59% of their points allowed are from two. 25% of their points allowed are from three, and 15% are from the free throw line. So in terms of that 25% of their points allowed from three, that is 292nd in the country, which is good. You would want to be lower in that ranking, right? That means that teams are they're not getting any of their points from three. So not only is the percentage low, that would also tell you that the amount of 3-point shots attempted against them is low as well. They also are not fouling very much. For teams to only have 15% of their points coming from the line. That's 319th in the country, which again, as a defense, you want to be lower. I think a team like Houston may end up fouling a little bit more. I don't know their foul numbers off the top of my head, but UC, they are definitely coaching, walling up around the rim, contesting. They won a lot of tough twos. We've talked about Xavier's defense at length and their ball screen drop. They've allowed a lot of mid-range pull-up twos contested, which it's been a good strategy for them in a lot of ways throughout. UC does drop a little bit, but we'll talk about. But overall, their philosophy is do not foul. They want you to shoot twos. They want you to drive. They want you to beat them one-on-one. They do not want to overhelp and allow threes, and they want you to make tough twos over the top, in those awkward 7 to 15-foot ranges, and they've been quite good at it, right? You could obviously debate the schedule that they've played to some degree, but KenPom still has them as a top 30 team defensively. And again, we talked about this, but KenPom, it does account for who you're playing against, right? So having a good defensive game against Kansas and a good defensive game maybe against a low major team, right? KenPom is going to weigh who you're playing against. So they're doing a lot of things that are going to translate defensively. In coaching circles, Wes Miller is known as a really good coach. So I don't think that's much of a surprise to many people. And we'll just kind of get into it here, the film of exactly what they're doing. But you're not going to see a ton of traps like we saw with Houston. They're going to more try to put pressure on you by pressuring the ball, and they're trying to deny passing lanes. So you'll see here, right, in this situation, like they're picking up the ball. They get through the ball screen. They're right there again. It's just high motor on the ball. You'll see C.J. Frederick. He's going to be guarding this bottom wing here, the right wing. He's high and up in the passing lane. Maybe in a more traditional Xavier pack line defense, he might be more shaded to the ball handler. He's more in a help situation, more of a 50-50 gap. You'll see here he's about 80% shaded to his defender, only 20% shaded to the ball. But again, they're just pressuring the ball. Man on man, they're trying to say our guy's going to beat your guy in these situations, moving their feet. And they've created some turnovers. They're not one of the top turnover created teams in the country, but they're just trying to disrupt what you're doing. They're trying to disrupt sets that you're getting into, and they are trying to create some occasional steals in a situation like this where, again, our guy is better than your guy, and he's going to just keep him in front and win these one-on-one battles in the trenches. It's almost like a Big Ten West football game. Like it's our offensive line against your defensive line. We're going to run the ball, and we're going to see if you can stop it. That's a lot of what UC's defensive philosophy is. They drop also in ball screen coverage. You'll see here, right? This is their defensive center. He stays all the way back. That's a lot like Xavier does as well. But again, all across the board, they're just looking to get into the ball. They're looking to play tight off of the ball. They're looking to make plays. So again, this kind of shot right here, this is exactly in the wheelhouse of what they're looking to give up. Again, you see ball pressure throughout the reversals. They set this screen. Again, their five-man defender. He's at the Big 12 logo. He's showing length. His whole idea is, again, don't let your roll guy behind you for a layup. But, again, a floater from 15 feet at the three-point line, that is a shot that you're going to give up against pretty much any college basketball player in the entire country. And we talked about they give up a lot of two-point field goal attempts. Those are the attempts that they're looking for. And you see they also try to deny a lot of these reversals. Like I said, Xavier traditional pack line defense, which has been around for as long as I've been conscious to Xavier basketball. It's kind of in your gap, helping each other out, helping recover. UC is more like this guy's going to play one-on-one. He's going to keep him in front, and we're not going to allow easy passes around. So they do a good job of just having hands in the passing lanes. Xavier does use their bigs through reversals a lot. This is going to be something to look for on Saturday. Can Xavier's guys get open on the perimeter to simply reverse the ball in their flow offense, which we saw that last year in both good and bad for each team, and we'll get to those clips eventually. But here's a clip of them just kind of high pressure, high denial against Georgia Tech.
And something that can happen there too, Trey, is when it's taking time to get open and you're like, you're having to do that thing where you're waiting and the big's hedging out and like, come on, throw it to this hand. I've got him. I'm holding him off. That's killing your tempo and your pace on the offensive end. And in that flow offense, pace can be so important. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep using these football analogies, right? Because again, I'm not a football guy, so I sort of understand. But it's kind of like the slow tempo against some of these spread teams in football, right? Like you don't want Oregon to get in their offense tempo, so you're going to run the ball as much as you can when you're on offense. There's those new substitution pattern rules in football where you can take the time to sub. You'll see football teams walking their substitution guy in to kind of slow it down. Same exact thing as you said. I mean, Xavier's strength has been their flow offense over the last 2 years, their pace, right? Rather they've always executed or not, they have had very good pace. And to your point, when you're denying ball reversals through guys like that, you're just trying to disrupt what they're doing. And again, yes, the trap in a Houston situation, right? That's pretty obvious of the disruption. This is a disruption in a little bit more of a discreet way. But UC is also not gambling as much, right? You're not going to get as many advantages as maybe you would against Houston, where you're slipping to the rim for a layup, or if there's a ball screen trap 2-on-1, you pass the ball out and you're playing 3-on-4. This is more man-on-man, back in the backyard, king of the court type basketball. That's what they want you to do, right? As much as you possibly can. Here's some great examples of that, right? They really stay home. They really, 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 really stay home.
When you say stay home, that means from a help, the guy who's not on the ball, they're sticking with their man, correct? Staying on a shooter.
Absolutely. And so in these off-ball situations, right, like you'll see Frederick here, okay? He is guarding number 14 on the wing. In some defenses, they want that guy all the way to the nail. The nail, there's literally a nail on basketball courts right where it's right on the free throw line, right in the middle. So a lot of teams would refer to that as the nail defender, and they want that guy there to kind of help. So in a classic pack line defense, your positioning is your help. So in a pack line, they would want Frederick there at the nail, more centered up, and they're like, hey, the help is already there. Your position, you're already in your position. That's your help. And then on a pass, you would seek to recover to 14. So you're helping on a pass to 14. Your job is to be two places at once, be there on the catch. In this situation, right, you'll see Frederick really stays home on the wing. You'll see the baseline defender there, right? He's guarding, it looks like a non-shooter for Georgia Tech. So he's a little bit more shaded over, but he's not really in a complete help situation. You'll see number 15. He's guarding at the top of the key. He's in more of a reactionary help situation. So he's a little bit more shaded to his ball. He's more of in a denial up here, right? Like he's thinking, okay, if he tries to reverse it through the center, I'm stealing this and it's a pick six. He's more, okay, now he's beat our guy a little bit. He's gotten at least a step. Now he comes in and digs. His help is not his position. His help is more reactionary. So this is more reactionary help. Whereas the pack line is more proactive. You're already in your position. But you'll see they still do a good job of staying home. They're out to 3-point shooters, and they give up, again, another mid-range flow 2, which analytically, any team that shoots us the whole game, you're not going to win many games. So I've got a couple more clips just so you can kind of see it again. Here's the ball pressure, right? It's not a trap. They're way up on there. They're playing with hands. They're trying to get deflections. They're pushing that ball all the way out to half court, making it tough to run sets. But he drives this ball, okay? I would say it looks like he's got a step on him. He's got his shoulders in front of the defender. Watch in the corner, right? The defender in the corner. He does not come all the way there to help. Okay, this is taught through like this. This is part of their philosophy. Some teams you may see a little bit more help, and that'd be a kick corner 3. In this situation, right, he stays home. You've got somebody coming from the backside to block the shot. Again, you end up with another mid-range 2. You'll see on the opposite wing, there's right in front of UC's bench, it looks like, right? I mean, that defender, he's not in a help position per se. He's in a denial position. He's in a reactionary position, but they give up the shot that they'd want to give up in this situation. That is definitely taught through film, through practice. That is no accident. That is a big, big, big part of what they're going to do, throughout their season. Here's another one. Same situation, right? He drives in. He's deep in the paint, okay? Look at how far out UC's defenders are on the perimeter. 1, 2, 3. If this ends up being a pass out to the 3, right? UC's right there. That's a steal, or they're right there to contest any 3-point shot. And that goes back to the point distribution, right? So to bring up that number one more time, only 25% of their points allowed come from 3. They are barely allowing any points from 3 compared to most teams in the country. These are the situations where that stands out, right? They're not digging in. They're not double team in the post. They're not digging in heavily where it's a kick to number 14 for a 3. This is what they want. This is their philosophy. They're saying, can your guy make a tough 2 against our guy? And can we do it without fouling? If you're UC, that's what they're saying, right? Like, hey, don't foul in this situation. Don't give up free throws. Don't give up threes. We want these teams to live in this mid-range. So how teams get to the mid-range against UC, it's a little bit different than Xavier, but the idea is the same, right? Like, beat us with tough contested 2s from the mid-range, and we don't believe over the course of a game or the course of a season, right, that's going to end up being a strategy that hurts us. So one more clip of that. I think we're getting the idea here. But look how tight UC is off the ball. Okay, some teams have what's called a midline, right? So a midline, you'll literally see people will tape a line down the middle of the court from rim to rim. Some teams in the pack line, they want you to stand on that midline, right? You'll see here, UC, they're 1 foot outside the paint, 1 foot inside the paint. Even as that ball's coming, watch these defenders. They start to shade away from the ball. So as that ball's coming, they're actually shading back towards their man, away from the ball, as opposed to helping, even though the ball's coming towards them, because they see their defender on the ball. He does a pretty good job staying in front. Now, hey, if it's a blow-by situation, that's going to be a dunk. That's completely different. But they're taught this. They're trained this. Hey, if he's got his guy leveled off, stay home and let's allow these tough 2s all day.
Yeah, and one thing that can make the reads difficult here is a lot of guys are thinking, well, I'm going to get 2 feet in the paint and make a good read and kick the ball out to a teammate, because a lot of times the defense is going to collapse on me. But in this situation, as you're getting to 2 feet, or maybe you're slowing up a little bit on your drive looking to kick, all of a sudden the defenders are fanning back out to their man and your passing lanes have been eliminated. And now maybe you're not in the mode of thinking score necessarily at that point. And it can really kind of confuse guys and slow them down a bit on penetration.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's just completely opposite of what we saw against Houston on Friday. And that's where, whatever your game plan was last week, you're completely scrapping that from Delaware now until the UC game, right? Because what you're facing is just completely different. And like I said, that makes coaching this time of year extremely, extremely difficult, especially in a Houston situation where you're just not facing that year in, year out. At least with UC, there's some familiarity for each coach. They coached against each other last year, right? So you better believe they've watched last year's game more than a few times. And so they're going to have an idea of what worked, what didn't, how they want to get, how they want to sharpen the saw on that. But that's just, these are the types of things that are interesting to follow. Here's a clip from last year's game. We'll get more into last year's game heavily specifically. This is just more to show you, like, these are the type of shots they want to give up. Even though the guy gets in the paint, you see as two guys kind of rise vertically. They're like, even though that guy drives for a layup, we want to make you make layups over the top. Same situation, offensive rebound by Fremantle. UC doesn't freak out. They're like, hey, if you make this, you make this. But at the end of the day, we're not going to foul you. We're going to make you earn each of these shots with tough two makes throughout the season. Then there's a couple ball screen clips, okay? Again, here's this kid that's really big and long that plays the 5 for UC. He's dropping all the way back. He's giving up a mid-range 2. Again, if that's Houston, that's a trap. This is more what Xavier would do with their big men defensively in a ball screen situation. And then again, same sort of situation. He's in a drop. He's getting back. And then watch on this drive, right? Again, look at how home UC's defender stays in the corner. Even though there's a pass, he's basically right there the whole time. He stays in front without fouling. Again, look at number 2 for UC. He's not selling out to stop a mid-range 2. He's like, hey, I'm gonna stay right home and not give up the catch and shoot 3. So it goes hand in hand. Their ball screen coverage, how they defend off the ball. I think we're kind of getting the point by now in terms of what they want to do. I think we got all that, so I'm going to go ahead and skip over to Victor Larkin. So one matchup in particular I am looking at is Vic Larkin. He's their top scorer. He's a very, very, very skilled big man. He can post it. He can pass it a little bit. He can pick and pop. He can catch and shoot from 3. He's averaging about 15, 16 points a game right now. And I think that this is one of the guys where Xavier may change up a little bit of their ball screen coverages in this game. They may or may not. We don't know for sure. But it's just one thing I'm looking at as a possibility going in. And so you'll see here against Georgia Tech's in a drop. Right. And if anybody remembers when we go back to one of those very first ones, the tough part about a drop is you do give up the throwback pass a lot. In drops, you're like, we're taking away layups. We're taking away mid-range shots. The 3 can be a little bit tougher to take away in the drop. It's not impossible. There's always adjustments to the adjustments. But you'll see here the guy defending the center, he's back. He's making sure his on-ball defender squares him off. So you see the ball start to be squared off, he starts to run back, but Larkin has kind of teed that thing up. Again, he's popping to space, knowing he's going to have a pick and pop 3. I think we're definitely going to see situations where this arises on Saturday where they put Larkin in some pick and pop situations, and they're going to see how Xavier guards accordingly. So same sort of situation here against with Georgia Tech, pick and pop 3. Here's another pick and pop 3 when they're playing Eastern Washington. Again, those are all against drops. Again, just because they're getting wide open shots in these clips, right, that doesn't mean Xavier can't do a good job of getting over the screen and getting back. Sometimes you just got to do what you do and do it better. But there could be a situation where Xavier changes up what they're doing a little bit. Here's a clip from last year's game. Right, Nunji's just kind of staying all the way back. It's kind of like a little rub screen. He doesn't come completely set. But again, Nunji last year was a heavy drop guy, giving up a lot of mid-range 2s. In this situation, you're facing a very skilled 5-man who can definitely knock down the 3. Again, just going into Saturday, we'll see how this is used. He's also a very good post-up player, very skilled on the block, very good footwork. Here's him last year scoring in some one-on-one situations. So we talked at nauseum about, Xavier's got this post trapping, right? They have the post trapping. Will they use it a ton on Saturday? Will they start playing one-on-one? Or if he starts cooking, will they change it up to some traps? Will they start with a trap right away? Will they mix it up? Maybe every TV timeout. Okay, now we're in the trap. Now we're not, just to keep him off kilter. We don't know that. Even though the post trap didn't work out exactly right away against Houston, they've had that in practice. there's a good chance they've done that in practice since then. They're building upon that, and like anything, right? They're just kind of chopping wood and getting better. And I think it's a tool they'll have in their bag throughout the season, because you could go into any given game and not plan to post trap, and if somebody's killing you down there, you may want to throw that in. But I think he's a more skilled low post player than anybody Houston had. Maybe not as physical, but he's got more game down there on pivot feet, right? Right foot, left foot, all those sorts of situations. So just tracking him throughout the game, how he's defended. I think Xavier's going to have to, they're more than likely going to try to throw a couple different wrinkles at him. And then just last year, I think it's defeating pressure, UC creating pressure, Xavier's ability to defeat pressure. That's going to be a huge story on Saturday. And, in Xavier's flow offense last year, UC was aggressive as anybody denying. So last year in the flow offense, this would just be a regular handoff with Boom and Jerome. You'll see UC, they're up the line. They're in a denial, right? They're not trying to just allow some easy little walk in the park handoff. They're denying. Here's a backdoor cut by Boom, which ends up being a reversal. It's a wide open three for Claude. Again, that was a really good shot. I mean, they got a wide open shot last year against that. They made a couple of them. Here's the same situation. Claude can't get the handoff, okay? It's not a direct back cut, but he ends up taking advantage of it, is patient with the ball. Again, he creates a layup against their pressure. Again, if you're going to, as a defense, try to take away ball reversals, if you're going to be farther up on the court, you're going to leave more room in the paint. You're going to be more susceptible to back cuts, more susceptible to some not helping off drives at times. So that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow throughout the game. Again, look at UC. Look how far up and out they are on Claude. Even though Claude, we know he's a driver. We know that's what he does really, really well. They're still denying that reversal. Some teams may say in a pack line, okay, that's Desmond Claude. We're going to help in the gap and make Claude drive and kick it. We don't want him to be a guy that can just drive one-on-one against our team. Again, in last year's game where Claude is, Xavier's seventh option, they still elected to deny the reversal. They're, you know what, we're still going to guard Claude one-on-one because we're going to do what we do. Obviously, it's no secret Xavier's not shooting the ball incredibly well as a team, specifically from the perimeter. So I think you will see some teams really jam it in against them throughout the season, but that's not UC's identity. So is there a chance that they have a curveball this week where they're like, hey, listen, we're up and out usually in pressure, and we're going to sink back and really play in against Xavier's guards, make threes? It's a possibility. It's probably not Wes Miller's DNA. So those are the decisions that go in as being a head coach throughout the week. But you see they're denying reversals. They get their hand on that. They get a steal. And that's the exact play, Rick, you were talking about earlier, right? In this instance, Jerome's got to be physical. He's got to create contact with this player. That can't just be a cornerback versus a receiver going to tip the ball. It's almost got to be like a post up on the perimeter where you're sealing your guy off and create easy catches. And again, that's another thing throughout the week. You better believe Xavier's working on pivoting. You better believe they're working on handling pressure. You better believe they're working on reversing the ball. It's just a thing that goes into the habits that you have to create in a game like this, maybe compared to opponents that you're playing throughout the season on a normal basis. Again, here's another situation. They're up. They're denying on the perimeter. Again, they're trying to get through this handoff. Here's Colby, right? Colby's a big, strong kid. Again, that's a pretty good job there by UC. They get through. They get a hand on the ball. You've got Cesar as a younger, inexperienced, bigger player than situation. They're trying to make him feel the heat. Same situation. Again, they do a pretty good job here pressuring Colby Jones. Again, they're denying off the ball. They're looking to get steals. Those are the exact scenarios where they're looking to turn you over. Like I said, it's not the traps as much. It's not as much. It's not as much the traps. It's not as much post trap. It's not as much press with a diamond. They're just man on man. Our guy's going to punk your guy, be better at what he does. We're gonna give up a lot of twos. We're going to stay home and not give up threes. And, for Xavier, I'm not sure that's the worst thing for them. If you're a great three-point shooting team, I think going against UC, you may be a little bit more concerned. Like, hey, we shoot threes really well. They defend it really well. Something's got to give here. If UC is extended, right, I mean, Xavier has been pretty good in those one-on-one downhill situations. Claude's been one of the best downhill drivers in the country. I think that's McKnight's strength for sure. Quincy is certainly He's potentially he can do it at times, right? He's more of a shooter, but he's still a bigger, stronger body. I think Trey Green, for a smaller in stature freshman guard, has handled pressure pretty well throughout the season. So that's what I'm going to be looking for come the shootout on Saturday, is how they're handling that pressure, and really how they're going to guard number 15 for UC. So.
Yeah, that's I mean that really is the question for me, is how they handle that pressure within the flow offense, if they're able to run any semblance of their offense, or if potentially if that does open up some more things for Desmond Claude, Dalen Swain to be more of a factor on offense, using his length and athleticism and driving by guys. Maybe it'll force some guys to be more aggressive just by the nature of the style of game it is, and they'll be able to come out of their shell a little bit. But we'll see how it goes. Those are definitely some great points to watch for if you're trying to watch the game from a more analytical perspective. I think Trey gave you some great things to look for matchup wise and chess match wise between the two coaches going into this matchup. So Trey, we appreciate that. Any parting thoughts on this year's Crosstown Shootout?
No parting thoughts. Just excited to watch it and watch another great game. It's electric. I remember when I first came to Xavier, my GA year. Jeremy Groh was a big part of why I came to Xavier, and Jeremy and I were both former IU managers, and then he was a GA at Xavier and Dobo, and I had some similar positions. I remember he told me, he said, he goes, people think that IU Purdue is just a way better rivalry in stature. And I think in the city, it's definitely felt to be such a huge rivalry. I don't think in the country it's not as highly broadcasted as a Duke, North Carolina, or a Purdue, Indiana. But I can say, as a guy who's been in those Purdue, Indiana games, a guy who's been at the Xavier UC, there is an intense hatred and feel in the air, no doubt. So it's going to be a really fun matchup just for both teams. The city, I think it's a critical game. Both teams are obviously in tournament resume building mode. So just looking forward to another great shootout here. So.
All right. Well, Trey, thank you once again for another great video breakdown. And as always, we've mentioned it on the last few shows, but Trey is back in town here in Cincinnati locally. So if you're trying to get some work in for your kids or someone on the basketball court, Trey can help you out with that. Be sure to look him up. I'll have his social media @s posted on the message board at musketeerreport.com, or you can find him on Twitter as well. So Trey, thanks again, and everybody enjoy the Crosstown Shootout.
Thanks, Rick.